Deportations and illegal immigration. Big topic right now. There's a lot of deportations going on, a lot of illegal immigration executive orders being done. So we're going to look at the debate today. What does the left think? What does the right think? First, we're going to acknowledge how emotional each side is. We'll take a look at the left first and see the emotional pull that is felt from the left.
This little taqueria, like most in the Pilsen neighborhood, is owned and operated by immigrants. The Cruz family, who in 1994 made the long journey from Mexico City to Chicago to grow their little taco stand into a thriving restaurant.
We got tacos, we got breakfast, chilaquiles.
This American dream is one thousands of migrants are striving for when they cross the southern border. But the drastic shutdown of illegal immigration is a campaign promise the majority of American voters are expecting Donald Trump to make good on.
Honest to you, when he come back again, I was like, man, I feel scared.
President Trump, border czar Tom Homan, and the highest-ranking members of Immigration and Customs Enforcement say they're only targeting violent criminals during these initial deportations. News Nation has seen what these operations look like. I rode along and conducted early morning raids with ICE agents when they arrested men from Iraq and Belize, convicted criminals who spent prison time for robbery and gun charges.
I'm not a criminal. I'm a good guy. I pay my taxes. I do everything right. You know what's going to happen to me? They're going to grab me too. You know? They're not going to check right now.
Man, it's hard not to feel bad for people like that who've invested decades, many years into building up their community, their society, building businesses, putting their family inside the United States, and they feel threatened that they're going to have to leave here soon, leave everything that they've built. It's really hard not to feel for people like that. I'm not here to give my side, but just as strongly as many people on the left feel about this issue, people on the right feel just as strongly about it, especially in terms of violent criminals who have entered the country illegally. So we're going to take a look at that.
Here are the mugshots of some of the most violent suspects with ICE detainers. Through our open records request, as of September, we identified ICE detainers lodged for 75 murder cases, of which 22 are capital murder cases. That includes the 2 illegal migrants from Venezuela charged with murdering 12-year-old Jocelyn Nongaray, whose mother has been vocal about blaming the Biden-Harris open border policy. 32-year-old Osman Sanchez is another suspect among these cases. ICE officials tell me he's an illegal migrant from Honduras. Sanchez is accused of killing 27-year-old Ricardo Vega during a road rage incident back in April. We spoke to his mother.
He has a 9-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son who now have to grow up without a dad. And my daughter-in-law has to be without her husband. How many other victims is it going to take before somebody actually does something about it?
And she tells me she's going to continue to fight for justice as her son's case makes its way through the court system. I do want to mention quickly something that stood out to us from this open records request is 174 of these ICE detainers are tied to sexual assault cases, and more than half of those cases involve children under 14 years old.
Man, that's just horrendous. No one wants to see that. No one wants to see these violent crimes be taking place, especially for people who entered the country illegally. Many who were deported and brought back again over and over again because of violent crimes. No one wants to see that. So you can see for the right, that's a big emotional stance. Stories like Lake and Riley and others who have really suffered from violent criminals that entered the country illegally. So a big part of the debate is who should be deported. Is it just violent criminals, or is it everyone who entered the country illegally? That's been a big topic of discussion even during the campaign time. After President Trump got elected, it was a more interesting conversation because Tom Homan and Caroline Leavitt started defining what it meant to be a criminal inside the United States. We'll take a look at that.
Who is ICE going after right now? I know that you and others said several times that it is the people who pose the biggest public safety threat to Americans who would be approached and deported first. Is that still the case?
Yes, people in the country illegally that have a criminal conviction, that makes them a public safety threat. That's our priority. And this is a difference between the last administration and this administration. ICE is going to enforce the immigration law. There's nothing in the INA, the Immigration Nationality Act, says you got to be convicted of a serious crime in order to be removed from this country. So There's going to be more collateral arrests in sanctuary cities because they forced us to go in the community and find the guy we're looking for.
So President Trump, Tom Homan, defined what it meant for them to be a criminal. Criminal meant that if you entered the country illegally, then you were in fact a criminal who could and would be sent to be deported. Caroline Leavitt, White House press secretary, also defined this.
The president is open to deporting individuals who have broken our nation's immigration laws. So if they are here illegally, then certainly he is open to deporting them. And that's what this administration is hard at work at doing. We receive data from DHS and from ICE every single day. From what we hear on the ground, ICE agents are feeling incredibly empowered right now because they actually have a leader in this building who is supporting them in doing their jobs that they were hired to do, which is to detain, arrest, and deport illegal criminals who have invaded our nation's borders over the past 4 years. That's what the president is committed to seeing. He is focused on launching the largest mass deportation operation in American history of illegal criminals. And if you are an individual, a foreign national, who illegally enters the United States of America, you are, by definition, a criminal. And so therefore, you are subject to deportation.
I apologize for interrupting. So to be clear, violent criminals do not receive precedence in terms of the deportations taking place.
The president has also said two things can be true at the same time. We want to deport illegal criminals, illegal immigrants from this country, but the president has said that, of course, the illegal criminal drug dealers, the rapists, the murderers, the individuals who have committed heinous acts on the interior of our country and who have terrorized law-abiding American citizens, absolutely, those should be the priority of ICE, but that doesn't mean that the other illegal criminals who entered our nation's borders are off the table. Right.
So the right is saying, hey, we need to deport all criminals. If they came in the country illegally, then they are a criminal. The left has a hard time with this, not necessarily with the violent criminal part, but they have a hard time with hearing that people who have been in the country, who've worked, who've paid taxes, who've built families here, that they are also subject to these deportations. We'll look at their opinion.
I agree that if there's bad people here that have committed major crimes, they should be kicked out of this country. Absolutely. But 68% of all the Latinos in America know somebody that's undocumented. And for all you folks at home, that's the folks who's picking your salad and milking your cows. On CNN tonight, in South Dakota, our farmer came on this show and talked about how he had voted for Donald Trump and didn't really think Donald Trump was going to deport the men and women who are milking his cows. Milk's finna go up. Buckle up.
The overwhelming number of immigrants here are law-abiding people who are paying taxes, who are following the law. And this sort of notion of like, we must remove all of them as rapidly as possible, and that's the problem with America, that's a really dangerous way to look at it.
Right. So the left really feels that it's a bad thing to send people and to deport people who came in the country illegally, who have been doing great things inside the country, who've been building their communities, building businesses, building families, and not committing violent crimes. The reason that this distinction is so important between violent criminals and nonviolent criminals is because Tom Homan and President Trump have initially said that they're going after violent criminals. So they have a list of people who have already committed violent crimes inside the country, who've entered the country illegally. So they're going and they're deporting these people. But there will be a time soon when this list will run out, when they're not going to have this violent criminals side anymore. So people have been asking, so who are you going to deport next? What's going to happen? And so they defined, we're going to also go after people who've just entered the country illegally, who haven't committed violent crimes. So it's kind of looking ahead, seeing what's going to happen in the next months, in the next couple of years, once all the violent criminals, or most of them, have been deported. The reason that distinction is so important is because that's what the big debate is. The big debate hasn't necessarily been on violent criminals, though Tom Homan, President Trump have had a difficult time deporting people in sanctuary cities. The real debate has been, what do we do with people who've entered the country illegally but haven't committed any violent crimes and have actually been an addition to the community and to society? Even inside the Republican Party, that's become a huge debate. From my perspective, this has been the flaw of the left's argument. The left's argument has said, hey, we know that there are violent criminals out there who've entered the country illegally, but they haven't really given a real solution what to do about it. Mainly their focus has been on people who haven't committed violent crimes, which I completely understand how emotional it is for people who have entered the country illegally but have built up their communities and their families. And on the flip side, the flaw of the right has been that they haven't really addressed people who haven't committed violent crimes. When you ask the right, what do you do about all the people who built up their families, not for the last couple of years, but for the last 20 years, what do you do about these people who don't have citizenship and have really been a blessing to society? They just say, we need a carte blanche deport everyone, and they really just focus on there are many violent criminals out there, which is true. There are violent criminals out there, but what do you do about all the people who haven't committed violent crimes? Let's look at an example.
So you would think that if President Donald Trump wants to go deport people, you think, oh, it's only going to be nannies and agricultural workers. No, embedded in our communities, ICE knew the names, they knew their locations, they knew their criminal histories. And they were just sitting around, probably committing other crimes. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, while they were president, refused to act on these people because it would be against the national religion of the American Democrat Party. Thou shalt not deport a foreigner. Yesterday, over 500 violent, emphasis on violent, over 500 violent criminal illegals were removed from the streets in 36 hours. These are thugs whose whereabouts in crimes were well known by local officials. But Democrats refused to detain them because it might hurt their feelings. It might hurt the feelings of a child sex trafficker or a child rapist. Democrats can't possibly hurt the feelings of a drug smuggler. So you would think that if President Donald Trump wants to go deport people, you think, oh, it's only going to be nannies and agricultural workers. No, embedded in our communities, ICE knew the names, they knew their locations, they knew their criminal histories. And they were just sitting around, probably committing other crimes. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, while they were president, refused to act on these people because it would be against the national religion of the American Democrat Party. Thou shalt not deport a foreigner. Yesterday, over 500 violent, emphasis on violent, over 500 violent criminal illegals were removed from the streets in 36 hours. These are thugs whose whereabouts in crimes were well known by local officials. But Democrats refused to detain them because it might hurt their feelings. It might hurt the feelings of a child sex trafficker or a child rapist. Democrats can't possibly hurt the feelings of a drug smuggler.
Right. So this conversation is super big topic. A lot of debate going on. Me personally, I'm not here to give my side of the argument. I will say that I have many friends on both sides of this issue, both of them strongly on either side. So I understand that there's a lot to go into this. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of statistics that go into this. I will say I want to hear what you think. What do you think about it? What do you think about deporting people? What do you think about deporting people who've committed violent crimes, people who haven't committed violent crimes? Leave your opinion in the comments. I want to know what you think. Subscribe, like, so you can see more content. I'm Tyler Covington with Center Leaning News. See you next time.